Over the past 20 days, I have built and painted 3 bolt action armies. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why I chose this project, why I adore bolt action as a game and the great work that Warlord Games are doing, and maybe why, if you're a wargamer but haven't dabbled, maybe you're a little bit stuck in your 40k ways, you should look into bolt action, look into Warlord Games, and you might just find your new favourite game alongside a system that's incredibly rewarding and easy to paint. So sit back, relax, kettle up, button up, grease your grease gun, and check out this video for February's monthly muster. This is Warlord Games Bolt Action. This is Unrelenting Hobby. Check it out. But before I get started with that, I want you to leave a comment telling me what game you're playing. Are you stuck in 40k waiting for a new edition this summer? Maybe you're playing a lot of Blood Bowl in an upcoming league. Or maybe you're playing something non-related to Warlord Games or Games Workshop. Whatever it is you're playing, leave a comment, feel free to tag the developer and the publisher, and I'd love to take a look. I'm always happy to have a look at and try new games. Thank you very much. So for those of you who don't know, what is Bolt Action? Bolt Action is Warlord Games' flagship tabletop game set in World War II. It's an absolute titan of historical wargaming, loved by many people across the world, and deserves far more attention and credence than it gets by the wargaming community at large. If you have ever lost a game of Warhammer 40,000 in turn 1, I have, this game will fix that for you. So I'll talk a little bit now about a bolt action army. A bolt action army can consist of a number of platoons. These can involve infantry assault platoons, armoured platoons for your tanks, heavy artillery platoons for your massive guns, and your heavy weapon team platoons for your MGs and your mortars. Your army can be built and catered however you want to around those ways. You can build a really nice themed thematic force. Maybe you want to focus more on a Waffen-SS force, the high veterans of Hitler's army, some of the worst, evilest men in history, and you want to put those on the table so they can get shot at, quite rightly so. Or maybe you want to run a horde of Russian infantry, carting their way across Europe, doing their best to fight the fascist invader from their motherland, and I'm sure help themselves to whatever they find in Europe as they go. For a standard army in bolt action, you can have anything between 30 and 60 infantry. 30 is about the sweet spot for what I've seen in most of my games and the games I've played. A tank or 2, a heavy weapon team, and then a handful of MMGs or mortars. You then get the commanders to run your army and your platoons, and from there you have everything you need to get started. Warlord Games do some fantastic starter armies, built for people looking to get into the game. They do some wonderful starter sets with 2 small armies in, with the rules so you can get a taste for the game. Alternatively, you can get everything you need for a full army in bolt action for about 100 quid. Less than 100 quid if you buy it from your discounted gaming store. Now when I say a full army, I don't mean a combat patrol box that gives you something weird with some troops and something else weird that won't even scrape 500 points in a game of Warhammer 40,000. I mean, there are 2 starter army boxes here. Each of those are well over 1250 points, which is about the sweet spot for bolt action, with leftovers. You can cater your list based on the veterancy of your units, so an inexperienced squad of troops is a lot cheaper than a veteran squad of troops. But because of that, you get a lot of versatility in how you write your lists, and it makes these starter boxes incredible value. So these 3 armies here will be far cheaper than a 2,000 point 40k army in any way, shape or form. These are less money than a couple of Imperial Knights, and I think that says everything that needs to be said about the value of these box sets. On top of that, painting, they are an absolute joy to paint. Building is fine. You need to get used to the metal weapon teams, which once you've done a couple, you get the hang of it quite right. The infantry, especially the new kits, are fantastic to work with. They're really easy to build. All the arms and guns are majoritively one piece, which makes life a lot easier. The Warlord resin weapon teams are infinitely more fun to work with than any resin Games Workshop or Forge World do. They just go together great and they paint wonderfully. The tanks take a little bit of finesse when it comes to the smaller parts, things like your toe loops or your tow ropes and the handles that fit to the turret so that your troops can jump in and out of the tanks as and when they need to. But once you've built a couple of tanks, you'll get absolutely no issues out of it whatsoever. If you built tanks for Warhammer, you'll do fine with bolt action tanks. I'm going to give a quick shout out to some companies who've helped me massively over the past few months and years. Gaahleri Airbrushes, who sponsor me, sent me one of their new airbrushes in the post recently. I cannot wait to take that for a spin. It arrived just after I finished my tanks, of course it did. But their airbrushes are phenomenal. They're accessible. They're very, very cheap for what you get for the quality. And they are the perfect airbrush for someone who's looking to develop and learn how to do it. Check out the affiliate link in the description below. And if you've got any questions about airbrushing, I do have a video on it. Alternatively, ask away, and if I can help, I will. Second person I'd like to thank for the help is Krydrufi, who I work with their modular art boxes. These are perfect hobby tools for hobbyists who hobby on the go, or maybe don't have a dedicated hobby space. Maybe you have a kitchen table that you've got to tidy away every time, or maybe you're doing it on a desk that your wife wants back when you finish, so you've got to tidy all your stuff away. These boxes are great because they allow you to transport your hobby goodies to and from a location all in one go. I take mine to the pub for a local craft night every other month, and it's fantastic, and it's also incredibly cheap. Again, link in the description for an affiliate link. And finally, what is an artist without their brushes? Orangebrushes.com are absolute heroes. Their brushes are insane quality for the price you pay. They are one of the most high-end, cheap brushes you will find. Take them for a spin. Discount code unrelenting10 in checkout. Again, check the description for a link below and tell them I sent you. Thank you very much, guys. The range for Bolt Action is enormous. If you've ever been to Warlord Games in Nottingham, or maybe your store itself has an extensive Warlord range, you'll see heaps of boxes with the wonderful Bolt Action artwork on there, with an enormous number of options for your force. You can add partisans, you can go for naval brigades, you can go for airborne for any of your chosen forces. The sky really is the limit when it comes down to what you want to play in Bolt Action. And finally, and I think this speaks for a lot of people who've played Warhammer for a majority of their gaming life like I have, rules stability. 3rd edition for Bolt Action came out last year. 2nd edition before that came out, I want to say 10-ish years ago, I don't have an exact date, but I started the game about 10 years ago, and it was in 2nd edition then. So it's safe to say that there's not going to be an edition change in the next 3 years like other game systems. The army books are coming out. We have the army books for the big main factions so far. There are more coming for places like France, Italy, Commonwealth nations, which again just add more options to the game for you to play with. And the stability and the longevity of these releases are far, far longer than anything else being done by other companies. That is because the game is inherently balanced compared to its competitors, and at the cost of that, you lose a little bit of the kind of flashy new releases. It is essentially a game of humans versus humans, as opposed to genetically engineered super soldiers versus aliens of, gargantuan horror. But that's the cost. I always find that stability and balance comes at the cost of the diversity of the factions and the rule set, and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for a game where the rules aren't going to change every 3 years, and you're not going to get weekly updates that then change your meta and change your list, and you have to buy new models every other bloody week, give Bolt Action a go. So overall, the cons for Bolt Action: you've got to get used to building some metal weapons teams, which you are going to super glue your fingers together, but get it behind you and you'll be fine. They're incredible in-game. It is a static setting, it is World War II, it is brother versus brother, it is machine guns and rifles. So you don't have the glitz and glam of a sci-fi setting or something as expansive as anything fictional. However, you do get to tell some great stories and play some great games with some great models in a setting that a lot of people in the wargaming community do have a slight interest in. The pros of Bolt Action: cheap and accessible. When I say you can get an entire army for less than 100 quid, I genuinely mean that. £80, £80, a little bit more, but I got these in an Acton Panzer starter box, which again saved you buying them all separately. You can spend the money on 2 or 3 armies for Bolt Action that you could on 40k. The game is superb, it is tremendous good fun, it is interactive, there's back and forth with you and your opponent. You kind of get the gist of what everything does on the table because it's a rifle squad against a rifle squad, it's a medium tank against a medium tank. But then the armies gain their individuality through their nation rules and through your paint jobs and your conversions and your stories. I have a T-34 here with a stowed balika-like, which is like a guitar, a crate of beer bottles or wine bottles, and then a bucket full of veg, which he's clearly helped himself to, probably from a Polish village he's rampaged through. And the other pro: longevity. The rules aren't going anywhere. When they're updated, it's minor and few and far between because of the inherent balance of the game. And because of this, you have confidence and reassurance that your army is going to be fit for play for the foreseeable future, and you will always enjoy playing it without having to worry about what's going to come, what's going to get FAQ'd, and what new release is going to knock it on its arse. So if that sounds good, head to your local gaming store, ask if they've got a Warlord section, and if they haven't, maybe see about getting one. If you're ever in Nottingham, pop by Warlord HQ. The guys there are absolutely fantastic. They'll throw you through a demo game, they'll show you what you need to get started, and it is only 5 minutes around the corner from Warhammer World, and they've got some fantastic displays. You can do the studio tour, and there's a lot of staff there who are genuinely passionate about the products they do and the games they make. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about this month's project for February, my monthly muster, which is these 3 Bolt Action forces. So when I decided I wanted to do Bolt Action for my February monthly muster, I wanted to do 3 factions. One army wasn't enough. I could do 1 army in a week, no problems, no stress. So let's add more stress. I decided from there to do 3 armies, which was the Fallschirmjäger, the US Winter Army, and the Soviet tanks. I've had most of the Soviet tanks for a year or 2 now, waiting for the day to come. The day came. And then I wanted a German force and an American force because I already had a British and Soviet force, and variety is the spice of life after all. In terms of the purchases, it's the Fallschirmjäger Winter Starter Army, the US Winter Starter Army, and the Blood and Steel Soviet Expansion Box Rakton Panzer with a few extra bits to ton on there. There's a couple of printed propelled artillery guns, some T-70s, otherwise everything else is Warlord plastics. In terms of army list writing, the 2 Starter Army boxes are fairly identical parallel. They get their commanders, they get 36 to 40 infantry, they get a couple of vehicles, medium guns, and their artillery pieces. So in terms of list writing for those, I decided I was just going to do it as they are in the box because I knew that would be legal. I knew I could then tweak it from 1250 there around using veterancy for some of the units, and it would then give me everything I needed to start playing games with these armies immediately without stressing too much about what's in this, what's the meta, what do I want to do with that, why is this missing that, do I need to buy more? It's an exercise in completion, not perfection. So let's get stuff done, let's get stuff painted and get it on the table. With that in mind, I had to think about the paint scheme. I really like the examples on the boxes for these games. The Winter Fallschirmjäger with that kind of semi-bright blue, the US Army with their really rich brown coats. I just think it's quite synonymous, it's fun, they clash great on the table, and with the help of speed paint, it's going to be dead easy to sort out. The tanks I wanted to do something a little bit different on. I did a little bit of airbrushing, especially in the Soviet tanks, but then the Allied and the German tanks were predominantly base coated and then whitewashed with some panel lining and transfers. Dead easy to do. It definitely took longer to build them than it did to paint them, and you can check out the videos on how I did that in the column somewhere around this video. So, plan was 3 armies over 20 days. Week 1 would be building, because the majority of it did need building, and I did a lot of that in bed because I've not been very well. So, big open box on the bed, clippers, hobby knife, plastic glue, getting all the infantry and tanks built in there. Very relaxing, very nice, very peaceful. And I didn't drop anything or lose anything, which is even better. So I spent the first week building everything. Week 2, I painted which one did I do first? The Fallschirmjäger. I painted the Fallschirmjäger first purely because I wanted to. And I was really excited to paint the Pak 40 in particular. It's a very iconic German piece of anti-tank artillery. And it just smokes fools, and I love it. So for their scheme, I planned using, again, 95% speed paints. I got the blues, the bones, the tans, the ash greys, the whites, all down, ready to go. I knew they wouldn't take long to paint at all. I spent the first few days of the second week painting up the infantry. I did 15 on Monday, 15 on Tuesday, then the weapon crews on Wednesday, and then Thursday made a start on the tanks and the artillery pieces, and by the lunchtime on Friday, the entirety of the Fallschirmjäger were done, which is absolutely wicked. A whole army in a week. Literally, that's it. Done. 1250 points ready to rock. If you've not played Bolt Action or haven't started it, which nation would you love to play? Leave a comment and I'll tell you what my favourite unit from that faction is. The Winter US, very similarly. They, in theory, should have taken less time to paint their knees because there's a lot less colours on there. The Fallschirmjäger have ramshackle uniforms of coats they've stolen and clobber they've knit from villages they've ransacked. I'm sure the US Winter guys wouldn't have done anything quite to that degree as much, but I'm sure some of them helped themselves to some scotch in abandoned cabinets. But majority of them having brown coats and green helmets made life a lot easier. Again, almost all speed paints, using browns, reds, greens, and whites for the canvas covers on the helms where needed. And it was a delight to do, and they took even less time. I think I'd finished the US contingent by Thursday. I even managed to sneak in a cheeky British Firefly, which I've had for, again, well over a year and a half now, who can be slotted into a British force I've yet to get, so I suppose I should probably get that starter box next. When planning the army, I decided I wanted to spice things up a bit. I watched Band of Brothers not long ago, and the scenes in the Forester in the Battle of the Bulge were absolutely iconic. I adored that. And I really wanted to frost up the bases and have some nice sandbag encampments, some kind of cut-up logs ready to build, little dugouts for machine gun nests and bits like that. So I've decorated a few of the bigger bases with tree trunks, sandbags, and shredded logs. as in to give them a little bit more theme. The great thing about these heavy weapons teams is they are literally dioramas unto themselves. They all tell a story. You can spend a little bit of extra time getting their bases looking swish, and it's well worth it because these stories tell the narrative of your games and where your forces during the war and what they're doing. So, week 2, Fallschirmjäger were done. Week 3, the US Army were done. Here's the videos on how I painted those. Check them out. Week 4, Rolling Russian Thunder. I started with black primer across all of them. I then cracked out the airbrush and used my AK Russian tank paint set with a few greens, browns, bones, which made doing some really fun little camouflage patterns on these tanks a delight to do. I attached some stowage before priming that came with the Achtung Panzer expansion bits just to add a little bit of personality to tanks. And I think, again, adding that uniquity to your army is great fun and also make sure it separates them from everybody else's on the board. It is World War II. There's a lot of green, a lot of beige, a lot of grey. So whatever you can do to make your models unique, you should absolutely do it. With that in mind, the tanks took just under 2 days to sort. Once the airbrushing was done, I applied transfers. Everyone's got their own little Russian slogan on there: death to fascists, Stalin, forward to the West, so on and so forth. Each tank is individually numbered, and the first number of all their call signs is their number designation that's going to be an Achtung Panzer, where you number your tanks so you can make sure you know who's been wrecked, whose gun is pissed, who's fluffed their rolls for the past 3 times because they're stuck in a ditch. Really good fun game. Highly recommend it. So again, I've made sure that I planned for these tanks to be effectively, easily recognizable in game for when I'm playing games of Achtung Panzer. And then with that, I used some panel liner. I used an oil wash of burnt umber. The only time you question your sanity painting bolt action tanks is painting the tires on the wheel housing. But it's worth doing. It breaks up that colour nicely and that little bit of realism that these tanks do deserve. So with the tanks all done, that brought the month to a close. I took the US winter to a game at Warlord Games last weekend against my friend Joe, against his veteran Germans, and I got absolutely pasted because I was undercosted because I forgot to bring my artillery observer. Artillery observers are great. You roll to see what they do. They could fudge it and call in next turn. They could drop some smoke screen. They could drop a load of howitzer shells in your opponent's deployment zone and annihilate massive amounts of their squads and leave the other ones pinned and absolutely shiting it. So highly worth taking and tremendously good fun when things go right. Alternatively, your opponent draws their dice first, picks them off with a sniper. Great, cheers, that's points well invested. Bolt Action's an incredible game where you can also reenact some of your favourite battles from the Second World War. Which battle to you stands out massively that you would love to see recreated on the tabletop? For me, it's absolutely got to be the Battle of Stalingrad. So there we go. 3 Bolt Action forces painted in the space of 15 days, built on an additional 5 days. All done, all ready for the table, all ready to lay waste to the invaders or defend their homeland or whatever the force is you are running. Thank you very much for watching. Again, I cannot stress enough how much you should give this game a go. Go to your FLGS. If they've got a Bolt Action demo set, get it out and get it played. If you are enjoying Bolt Action, let me know what you're playing. Let me know what releases you're excited for. I'd love to hear about that. I am excited for hopefully more Achtung Panzer updates and the Soviet naval brigades that got revealed last week. Yeah, they look absolutely wicked. There we are, guys. Another month, another obscene amount of models painted. Massive shout out for you for watching. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all that cringy social media bullshit I can't stand. Thank you regardless. Massive shout out again to Orange Brushes for my brushes, Gaahleri for my airbrushes, and Krydrufi for my modular art box. Discount codes and affiliate links in the description. Treat yourself, you deserve it. And finally, if you'd like to support me, you can head to my Patreon, which is Unrelenting Hobby. For a small, tiny amount, cheaper than a pint and a pub these days, you can help me enable to be able to do more content like this and do what I adore to do, which is paint toy soldiers and help other people do that for an indeterminable amount of time. The longer, the better. Any support is massively appreciated, so thank you very much for that. Likewise, you can follow me on my socials, Facebook, Unrelenting Hobby, Instagram, Unrelenting_hobby. And check it out. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, blah, blah, bullshit. What am I going to paint next month? Leave a comment with what you think I'm going to do. Peace.